Good.
I'm just gonna give it some time. We've got a couple more minutes.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Are we on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Brother's downstairs. Cheryl's doing the dishes. We won't let her come in.
All right.
No, she's listening.
Excellent.
Hi, Ian.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Ian.
I guess I don't count.
Alex.
About time you realize that. It goes on for about 15 years and then you get back in.
Oh, maybe if you sit on Anne's lap, that'll help.
Oh gosh.
Oh, there's Bob.
Yes, I'm here, kind of. There we go. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just letting folks in as they arrive. Got a couple of minutes.
Loving your new name, owner.
That's Bob, right? Not me.
Right, right, Bob.
What? My new name?
Yeah,
That-
the name on your picture is says
Oh.
owner, OWNER.
Oh. I'm not sure why that happened.
Oh, there's some. Hey, Tom. Hey. Susan. Michael. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Here's Lucky. He's here tonight.
Oh, hello.
Oh. Marcia, where are you and Tom tonight? You're muted.
honey.
Texas.
Are they?
There we go.
There you go.
El Paso, Texas.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
my gosh.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm in Bella's room right now.
Tell Bella hey for me.
Bella, say hi. Hi.
Aw.
Look at that Ian. Oh, what a precious boy.
I know. Megan came back. It's good.
Do just a few more minutes. Let some folks arrive. I know that there might be another meeting wrapping up now that folks are coming from. So get them here.
Ginny, I don't know if there's anything I can do about this, but what I've discovered is that I don't have access to my Gmail online right now. It's a fight I had with using the Chromebook yesterday, and it's complicated my life. But what I'm trying to say to you is, I've got you on my phone, but if you've got it up and the numbers and the letters of me to do Zoom, oh no, you know what? It's not going to work there either. Zoom is out too. It's somehow it's connected to Chrome and Google. So, hi.
Hi. I see you. You see it. Yes.
Say hi, Lane. You say hi, buddy.
All right, friends. Good evening and welcome, and thank you for being a part of this night number 2 of What Did I Learn on Summer Break?
Mm.
If it's all right with you, I'm going to open up with some prayer and then kind of have a time of catching up. Any questions that may have come up since our last visit, and then I'll jump right into
Sorry. The cat wants to join us. Sorry.
and then I'll jump into the next part of the rule of life. So the Lord be with you.
Also
Also
with you.
you.
Let us pray. Lord, it feels heavy right now. With our neighbors in Western North Carolina suffering, and our neighbors in California suffering, all of the uncertainty and trepidation that we're feeling as we all are holding our breath as we anticipate changes that are on the horizon, and our neighbors who are near to us who are feeling that insecurity and uncertainty in a very soulful and real way. Not to mention the pain around this world, the war-torn and strife, and places that grab the headlines of the paper and places that never have and never will. For all the illness in our country and all of the storms on the horizon, Lord, it feels heavy. And yet, you continue to call us to move with courage, to move with brave souls and hearts, and to move in the direction of your light, reflecting your light in this world. Lord, I ask and I pray that you do and give us that courage, give us that strength, give us that hope, so that in the places that are dark and feel far from light, that we may enter in and be your face and your peace. In your name I pray.
Amen.
And
Amen. We got some folks who are coming in. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. It's so good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining again on this second night of a 3-part series of Rule of Life. I'm just wondering, since last week and this week, if anybody had anything come up that you wanted to ask more about, or if you weren't here last week and you haven't had a chance to watch the video, if you wanted to hear any details about what we covered last week. But I just want to kind of make sure we're all on the same page and everybody's got enough information before we continue to move forward. So I open the floor to you. So if anybody's got anything, just shoot, and I will happily answer what I can.
Ginny, would you show us the first slide on the rule of life that you put up? The only one we saw last week, where you showed us your rule of life and the time allotments and how you set it up.
Well, is this what you're looking for? No, this is oh, where did it go? This is
No, it's not that one.
not that.
Although-
So I'm gonna fast forward. I'll go
Okay.
slide by slide, and you tell me what it is that you're looking for.
That's it.
Okay. So this is component number 1 in my relationship with God. That is where all of that started. But I think last week I actually started with the last with the last component because y'all wanted to know about the house. So, but yeah, this is component number 1 in the order of my rule of life. And so how I intend to be in my relationship with God is to read scripture every day, to have a time of daily prayer, to be in silence 10 minutes a day, at least 2 hours in a week in solitude, and that's away from everybody, and 3 hours a week in study, and 1 hour a week in writing and reflecting. And these are the realistic, achievable ways I intend to meet that particular part of my rule of life.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We weren't here last week. I had one question after watching your video, and it was, is your rule of life based on any of the general rules of life that are out in like monastic communities and stuff, or is your rule of life just from Ginny?
I pieced it together from a couple of monastic communities. So it's not a scripted one from one particular community or the other. I looked at them and I picked what I thought would be helpful for me coming out of sabbatical.
And the other question was, is the other half of your life, is Barbie also committed to this rule of life, or are you sort of on your own with it?
She, from the moment I returned from Valley Crucis in November, was aware of, actually she knew it as it was unfolding. I kept her in the loop of what was going on. And as soon as we connected when I got home, I shared it with her and I asked her to hold me accountable to that. And so she's been very good at doing that, which I'm grateful for. She has her own I'm not sure she would call it a rule of life, but there is an order to the way that she moves and lives and has her being, and I support her in that as well. Great question.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Any other questions or wonders? Can I ask y'all a question?
Mm-hmm.
Did when we ended things last week, we've had a week now since then, do you have I shared anything that makes you worried?
No,
No, not at all.
no.
Because sometimes I think putting it on paper scares the hell out of me. But
Well, you're the one that has to be accountable to it, not us.
But the other part too, and I think we're going to see some of that today, is that I've put some really hard boundaries in place around my work life at St. Anne's. And so I hope I don't frighten you, but I feel like by doing this, I will be able to be a better priest and rector and a good steward of my gifts and time as well as yours. So that being said, we're going to jump into the next rule of life, which is about relationship. And I'm going to change this to that. What I found while I was away, initially I struggled. I missed y'all like crazy, you know, and in missing you, I realized that outside of my job, I had very few relationships. And the role of being a priest is already a pretty lonely one. And we know, I knew that going into this. It was not a big surprise to me that it can be very lonely. But I wasn't doing myself any favors by not attending to relationships outside of work. So while I was away, that became very clear. And as I was entering back in, I was like, well, I can either continue that not attending to or letting relationships slide, or I can be intentional about having some balance between my relationship with people at work and my relationships with people outside of work. But work is a weird thing to say when you consider it church, you know? And it's community, it's all about community. But in working with my coach, I realized that if I don't have a safe place to go that's not work related, then I carry the stress of my work everywhere I go. And so when I say relationship, I am creating a place where I can go and let my hair down, and I can also be able to be tended to in a way that I can't have my parish tend to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So what I'm gonna do is bring this back up and flip, flip. So we're gonna talk about relationships, and relationships should be you would think they would come easy. Um, and the understanding is that when two people meet each other and you engage in conversation, you're planting the seeds of relationship. However, in the world of being a clergy person, there's a lot that governs how I can be in relationship with the people who worship at St. Anne's. Like one of the first things I did when I got the St. Anne's was to say, we can no longer hire members to do jobs at St. Anne's because it throws off the balance of relationship. Not, I go from being a person's priest to being their boss. And that's weird. And that's not a good, healthy thing. But I have to be careful in my relationship with the parish to make sure that I'm available to everyone and that the way I treat one person is the way that I treat all people. Naturally, there are going to be people that I will gravitate towards because we have a similar interest outside of the confines of the church. But I also have to be incredibly, particularly careful when that happens. And so I have found that the best thing that I could do in order to maintain good, healthy work-life balance and good relationship balance is to create and maintain a peer circle that has absolutely nothing to do with the church. And that was part of what came out of my rule of life. I thought I'd flip through that. So we talk about relationships. So what I'm gonna do about relationships is I'm gonna connect with two friends each week. I have some friends here in the area. I also have friends from seminary, and I have friends from my days when I toured as a musician, and I have friends, of course, from Asheville. I intend to be more available to parishioners, and one of the ways I've gone ahead and done that was make the Let's Meet link on the website. So if you're ever like, Jenny, let's find some time to meet. And back in the day, we'd send like 4 or 5 emails back and forth until we would come up on a date and time that worked. But this link, you immediately have access to my availability, and you find something that works for you, and then boom, we're going to have a meeting and it's going to be great. But I'm also trying really hard to sit down at coffee hour. I don't get to sit down at coffee hour. And that's one of the best times to get to know people and to spend time in the fellowship after the breaking of the bread, after we've prayed. And like this past Sunday, yesterday, I sat down with 2 different tables and had really great conversations. Most Sundays I'm occupied because of meetings or there's additional pastoral stuff going on that I need to attend to. So I'm going to try that. Part of my rule of life is to make sure that I if I have the time, I'm going to be at a table enjoying what Bread and Blessings has put up for us to enjoy and really reveling in those relationships. Because I think it's important that we know each other. No, I think it's really important that we know each other.
Ginny, I
Alex.
have a question. Meeting after the 11 o'clock mass service and having meetings then, is that a church tradition?
That's a really good question, Alex. That is how it was going when I arrived here. It's one of the things that if I could, if I want, I would change it in a heartbeat. I would say that we should actually live into the commandment to hallow the Sabbath day and not do work on it. That would be what I'd want to do, but it's not, that would be something that the committees would have to make a decision on. And vestry would have to make a decision on for themselves, right? But yeah, I would welcome a change in our culture if we were to really just not work on Sundays, except
Well,
come together for worship.
I'm only speaking for myself, but I would wonder how much less stressful it would be on Sunday to be able to want to sit down at different tables with different people, as opposed to I've got to gulp this down because I have a meeting.
Mhm. Well, I think that could be part of the strategic plan that we take on later in this year. I mean, really looking at, it's if we're gonna follow through on invite, welcome, connect, and we invite someone new to the parish hall, but half the people have to leave because there's a meeting. I'm just, but I'm biased too. I work at the church. I'm there all the time. I know for some folks, the only time they're going to get to the church is a Sunday. And if they have to have a meeting, that's the day they're going to, right? So it's both and in that. But perhaps part of the strategic plan could be looking at that and really examining, is this how we want to operate moving forward or not?
Thank you.
Yeah. But I do believe if given a magic wand and nobody's feelings would get hurt.
I know, Ginny, when you were gone, I didn't have the bandwidth to go to meetings on Sundays after the service. I just didn't have it. So I get what you're saying. And so I'm glad that you are able as much as possible to be sitting at the tables.
Yeah, that's important to me. Very much so. Because it may be the only FaceTime I get to have with some parishioners that week too, But there are other parishioners who are like, we don't need all that. And that's okay too. Highly aware of all of that. But the idea of getting, and I do get to know parishioners as they're coming in, I meet with them, we sit down, hear a little bit about their journey, share a little bit about St. Anne's. So I do get to know folks who are coming to St. Anne's new, but I don't want that to be the only time I get to know folks as well. So, let's see where else we are with this. Also, spend time on my marriage. Barbie and I are getting ready to celebrate our 10th wedding anniversary in February, and I will spend it at Valley Crucis with the vestry of St. Anne's, and she will be here. But one of the things that sabbatical really offered us was a chance to slow down and be in each other's presence in a way that we haven't been ever, actually. Because when we first started dating, she lived in Pennsylvania and I lived in Delaware, and life and jobs and commitments and things like that. So we had a lot of time together, and we really discovered how much we love each other and how much, not only that, how much we like each other. And we want to make sure that we are doing a good job of connecting with each other, of keeping each other in the loop, of challenging each other, but also holding space for one another in the things that challenge us. We have certainly grown a lot in this whole process of preparing the house to go on the market and just deciding where we want to go from here. And one of the things that we're giving each other for our 10th anniversary is marriage counseling. Not because we have an issue that we need to deal with, but because counseling doesn't mean you don't have to go to counseling for an issue. You can go to counseling to strengthen what's good and be mindful of maybe what you can't see and work on that. So it's really easy for clergy to forget that they're married. Because I know a lot of folks are like, I'm married to my job and to my spouse. Back in the day, I told folks that I was just going to be married to my job. I'd be a, confirmed bachelor for the rest of my life. And then Barbie messed all that up. And so I have to pay attention, you know? But yeah, Barbie's awesome and our relationship is amazing. And I want to do everything in my power to make sure that we strengthen that and we build on that foundation. So that is part of what I'm learning and learned coming out of sabbatical is that if you have to tend to these things, you have to tend to people and people have to tend to you. Together, you grow in your love and faith and, enjoy the fruits of all of that. You have any questions? Anything so far? Hearing none, I will continue. I'm going to be more intentional in connecting with my family members. Oh, no. I live closer to my two brothers than I have, in any other time. And I've only seen them maybe 3 or 4 times since I lived here. And a lot of that has to do with work. It's hard to get together when you work on the weekends. But also there's some hurts in my family that I think sometimes gets in the way of our relationships with one another. And while we were on sabbatical, one of the things that I did was rent a big lake house so that all of the Wilder family, my parents, my brothers, their wives, and their children, and I could get together. And it was the first time we'd all been underneath one roof at the same time in that shape of the family because my nephew had gotten married. So we were all together for the first time and not just for a meal. Like we were in each other's faces for 4 days. And we all walked away from that saying, that was awesome. Let's do that again. And so we have another date on the calendar to do it later this year. But from that, I realized that I don't know my brothers and they don't know me. And I have some work to do on that. I own some of that. Some of the distance that's between us. But I only have 2 brothers. I don't have a whole bunch of brothers. I only have 2, and I love them. And so I can either just let it keep sliding and getting, more distant and more distant, or I can do something about that. And as part of my rule of life, I'm choosing to do something about that. And so far, the connecting is going well. And I look forward to continuing to nurture those relationships and meeting up with them when we're able to and enjoy meals with one another, and gathering together later this year as the whole family to celebrate my nephew's wedding marriage. They got married in, town hall. Now we're going to get together and have the real celebration. I'm really looking forward to seeing them and being a part of that. Relationships take work, and they take forgiveness and honesty, humility, and they don't come easy. And one of the things I'm learning is that I have some behavior patterns that make it harder they don't have to be, it doesn't have to be, but sometimes I get in my own way, and I have to acknowledge my part, and then love them where they are. Any questions about that? Have you ever experienced any of that where maybe there's some disjointedness, but you felt it was worth it?
I don't understand. Disjointed and it's worth it. You mean being disjointed? Or,
To heal what's disjointed.
oh, yes, absolutely.
I feel like I'm a little bit vulnerable at the moment, but I know my mom's gonna watch this later. And I just want to say that Mom, everything's good. We love each other. I have since I was in boarding school, called my parents on Sunday every Sunday. And while we were on Zoom during the pandemic, Mom and Dad attended St. Anne's faithfully every Sunday. And so we get off the coffee hour, the online coffee hour, hang up, and then I'd call them, and then we'd have a complete review of the whole service. Wonderful. And that's a part of my Sunday rhythm, is to call my parents. So I'm just doing my best to be a good sibling, and a good cousin, and a good niece, and a good aunt. And that's what I'm learning.
I have an example of that might be worthwhile, because it's been hard, and it's been harder lately. In 21, I lost my sister. I'm the oldest of three girls, and my baby sister and I did not have a good relationship through most of our lives. And my middle sister, who passed, was my main connection to the family. And my baby sister is politically quite different from me, and in a lot of other ways, she just doesn't see the world the way I do. But we are the only survivors of our family of origin.
Mm-hmm.
And we made the decision together that we would work to keep a connection and keep some subjects taboo, and trying to get together. We've had a little bit of a hard time here lately, because they live just outside of Chattanooga, and our usual routes of visiting are much hampered. So we are current. I spoke on the phone to her today, and we're trying to figure a way to get together that's not unduly burdensome. So we speak on the phone a lot, but it's an effort to keep that relationship going.
Yeah. And one of the things that I keep coming back to in holding myself accountable to this and feeling all the feelings, really, is the prodigal son, the story of that in the Bible. And that we did an interesting exercise as a teenager a long time ago, where we portrayed three main characters, the father, the prodigal son, and the other sibling. And we each played one of those roles, and we stood however our body language would respond to that for 2 minutes, fully embracing the role. So someone would be the father, someone would be the older sibling, and one would be the prodigal son. And for 2 minutes, we stood in that position, and we felt everything. And then we switched. And by the time we switched, we'd had a chance to play all three roles, or at least be embodied in that. And I keep coming back to that experience, about the joy and relief of being welcomed home, but also the animosity of the older sibling, or I always refer to it as older sibling. I don't think it says so in the Bible that it's the older brother, but and I keep coming back to that as a place of rest and contemplation when I come to working on my relationships with my family. Anybody else ever experienced this kind of, working on relationships, tending to them, and the fruit of that labor?
Well, especially maternally, we grew up in an extremely tight-knit family. And since our parents are all deceased, we're talking 7 or 8 brothers and sisters. To see cousins have less contact with one another or not pick up the phone, like, because before it was easier, our parents got together, so therefore we were there getting together. And then, of course, as we've gotten older, I mean, and people have families, that's a whole different dimension. But it doesn't take much to pick up the phone. And as opposed to saying, well, I never hear from them, well, let them hear from you. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Communication is a two-way street, right?
Right.
Yep.
I don't know, in our family, there's a lot of us. I come from a family of 8. But the entire family gets together once a year. There's about 100 of us. And it's a family meeting. It's the nieces and nephews and their kids, and everybody gets together, and everybody gets together for things like funerals and weddings and other things. And we're all over the country, but we all come together in one spot, and we spend 4 or 5 days together. And that's been really, really helpful in keeping bad feelings down. Yeah, it's hard not to like somebody if you know.
That's right.
We find that in our family to be very helpful. And I will say, talking about the prodigal son, one of the better books that I've read is Nouwen's The Prodigal Son.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's a great book, I think.
Yeah,
I'd recommend it to everybody.
definitely, Bob. Thank you, and Alex, both for sharing. I truly do appreciate it. So those are the highlights of working on relationships coming out of my sabbatical and going into my rule of life. Of course, there will be other things along the way, I'm sure, if I feel like to add to that. But that's where I am right now, and I think that's enough without overcommitting or overburdening. I think that's enough for right now to work on getting to know my parishioners, but also developing my friendship circle and attending to my own relatives and my children too. They're very interesting people, very, very interesting people, and they're pretty cool, and I want to get to know them even better. We're going to move on now to the next component of the rule of life, and it's worship. You might be wondering, really? I need to have worship as a component of my rule of life, and I do. I do, because worship is also work. And if it feels like work, then it no longer feels like worship. And I can tell y'all, as we were getting closer to the time of sabbatical, they had reached that point where church was work and not very much worship involved. Wednesday nights felt like worship, but Sunday mornings felt like work. And I get a little crispy that can also harm my relationship with others and also my relationship with God. So when I think about worship as being a part of my rule of life, I also feel like one of the things that I did in seminary is that I was in a pew at least once a day, not 2 or more times a day. And so I need to go and be in a pew somewhere during the course of my week so that I can be ministered to. I can have someone listen to a sermon or receive Holy Eucharist where I didn't celebrate. And when I'm so overburdened by tiny little details to remember on Sunday, my focus is no longer on God, but it's on all the little stuff, right? And so please understand that if you approach me and you want to add something to my list of things to remember on Monday, I may ask you, please, instead of telling me, please email me or text me or in some way put it into a format where it's not here, because this is a sieve on Sunday. And I love and appreciate you, and I want to make sure you get what you need from me. And I'm also going to ask you to partner with me to make sure that. I will also ask that if you are asking me to tell Mark something, know that I'm going to tell you, please reach out to him yourself, because I don't need to be in the middle of whatever it is you're about to ask me to ask him. One of the other things about this is that we don't have a fussiness about our liturgy or our worship, and I'm grateful for that, because in the midst of things that are well planned, we can become so focused on the details that we forget about it being worship. And when things go wrong, and they do, I'm grateful to be in a congregation where we can laugh together, and we don't have to feel like everything's ruined, Like, I love that takes a lot of pressure off, where we can be fully human with one another in our worship. And when we get to invite the kids down to the table, when we want to say the words, these are gifts of God for the people of God. In that moment, we're talking about bread and wine, body and blood. We're also talking about these beautiful children who are also gifts, not only of God, but also to the church. And that's a way of being present and focused around the table. I'm going to stop there and ask you, what do you think about that? What do you think about those ideas about church and worship? And does it surprise you that sometimes, and I'm not alone in this as a clergy person, but sometimes priests have a hard time focusing on Sunday?
I'm not at all surprised. I'm surprised that it's taken you this long to take some time for yourself.
Mhm.
And because it's kind of like you're trying to look out for other people. It doesn't help us if you're not in a good place. So I think you need to do what you need to do in your spiritual life. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, Donna.
Ginny, yeah, Ginny, I agree with Donna. I know that when you were gone, before you left, we were figuring out what we were going to do about Wednesday evening services. And every other time you were out, I would just do it. But it was wonderful to be in the pew and have other folks lead the service. That was a gift. That was a huge gift to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm grateful for all of the lay leadership that stepped in while I was away to keep things going and to do things new. I will tell you, the best kept secret right now in all of Winston-Salem is our Wednesday night Celtic Eucharist. And especially
Amen.
when when we have great music. Um, it's great. And I will say that I steal away to St. Paul's from time to time now to go and receive Eucharist at their noonday service. And that's one of the ways I'm living into my rule of life. And it restores me in a way that is important. And um, I'm grateful that we live in a city where we have 5 Episcopal churches with all of the beauty and depth of the big tent that reflects in our Anglican Episcopal way.
I've often wondered if clergy does that actually, if they go to other churches and sneak in to get their fill. So thank you for answering my question. Um, in my spiritual journey, I often feel that way too, though, sometimes because I know I need my spiritual fill up, but sometimes it does feel more like duty because I know if I don't do it, I feel dirty the rest of the day. So I have my meditation time in the morning too, and sometimes I am not a morning person, y'all. Sometimes I cannot drag my carcass out of that bed and get vertical. Sometimes I am way late in the morning and I just don't get it in. And my whole day, I just feel kind of dirty. So sometimes it is a little bit more of a duty than it is a privilege. So I can totally relate to that, Jenny.
Thank you for sharing, Amber. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I think, as a church musician, we run into the same problem of dealing with the details. And I was the organist for a long time at the cathedral in La Crosse, and we had a very demanding rector. He was not like you, Jenny. He wouldn't smile if it didn't go right. You'd hear about it. So you got to the point where it was simply work. And there was no worship involved in it because you were so busy trying to. So I think the musicians at Terry and the choir and whatnot, we have to remember, try to help them have the time so that they can worship with us and not just be, dealing in the details.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. That's right. I mean, I I tell folks from time to time, we don't worship perfection, we worship our God. And if worship is ruined because something didn't happen in a perfect way, then were we really worshiping God at that? I also tell couples that when they're getting married that they can plan everything with every dot dotted and every T crossed and then something's going to go awry, and that's the Holy Spirit showing up because she's got a plan for something even better than we could have ever imagined. And I feel that if we don't leave a little wiggle room for the Holy Spirit, then we're missing out.
I wanted to just kind of also affirm, that the fluidity of, that we're allowed to forget to light a candle, or we're allowed to have a taper blow out 3 times when we're trying to light a candle. And
we
my
can laugh
parish in
about it.
Iowa, I loved, but for example, the Easter Vigil, for those of you who don't know, in the Catholic Church, adults are baptized at the Easter Vigil, and we would rehearse those poor people to our gal that led it. We called her the bishop, not to her face, but anyway. But they're not experiencing their baptism. They're worried about, how am I supposed to hold my hands, and how am I supposed to, because we had a pool for the, and so I just really appreciate it. And it occurred to me the other day, I can't remember what liturgy it was. There were a bunch of kids there. And I thought, you know what? I bet this is what the early church was like. We come together and we've got kids and we've got elders and and there's a little bit of noise and there's a lot of joy. And that's what I experienced at St. Anne's, and I'm so grateful for it. And to all you guys, I'm looking at everybody.
One of my favorite stories is Juno being up there at the altar when all the kids were up there, and she sang the Sanctus at the top of her voice. She didn't say any words that were intelligible, but she was just bellowing it out and so enthusiastic. She just, you can't do that everywhere. So I'm very grateful we can do that at St. Anne's.
And I think to add to that, what's refreshing, enlightening, emotionally moving is, do you think these little children are just down there playing with their toys and trucks or coloring, and yet we can say something during Mass and they're right there. Mm-hmm. They're right on, which to me is, I don't know, it's just moving. It's hopeful.
And there are often times when the children will kind of stop and watch and just see that they're just taking it all in. You're not sure exactly how they're perceiving it, but nobody cares if they're standing in the middle of the aisle looking at, because they're watching. It's important.
Yep.
I remember King, gosh, it's probably been a couple of years, and I think Ginny had asked a question and nobody gave an answer, and King's there probably coloring or not even looking up, but he had the answers. It's amazing what they can do. But I just wanted to say, mostly this is to you, Ginny, but to everybody else that doesn't, well, part of this you won't know about, there's no question you were working really hard before you left, because it's like, I even wondered at times if you were going, dear God, is this worth it? Because you had to retrain, or not retrain, you had to train people because you hadn't let go. And that was the leadership, and it was like saying to us all along, it wasn't a bad thing because you were setting a standard, but you had to lead. And my biggest wish was, let us stay away. Do not bring her back where she was. Do not, whatever you do not do that. And I had the joy, and this is a good time to say it because Martin was very much a part of our service, this sermon on Sunday, which was just beautiful, to be at church and walk through, and Ginny's door was closed, and all of a sudden I hear this whoop, 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 whoop. I just looked over at Mark and I said, is Martin here? And he said, yes. And I said, this is good. And I kept thinking today, and I think I even texted this to you or emailed you, that in a sense, this is part of his rule of life now, that he's got to help us keep you on track and doing all these wonderful things. And it's wonderful to hear you talking about the elements of this and the specifics of what you're in the midst of doing or planning to do. And I'm thrilled, and thanks for bringing us along on your ride.
Absolutely. Well, I am grateful for your witnesses as well. I part of they're part of the reason to share this is so that you can help me and hold me accountable, but also change is hard. Change is really difficult. There are some things right now in my rule of life that I am struggling with. And we'll cover a lot of that next week because I've saved probably the hardest for last. But sharing with you means that it doesn't live here and here. It's now lived outwardly. And when I try to take on a behavior that's new because of the rule of life, you are aware ahead of time that this is new and I might stumble. I might be real clumsy with it. But it comes from a place of love, love for you, love for our congregation, and love for my walk with Christ. And nothing I've put into this is steering me away from my relationship with God. It's steering me deeper into it. And
you're our model, So, we're going to be intimidated if you do everything to perfection. We're jumping on board with you if we had to. But I think one of the biggest things that came out for me this past week was, the daily prayer. And I'm so caught up in the morning with that's when it needs to be. And there's so many times I'm finding myself as I'm doing this, where my mind is drifting to something I have to do and blah, blah, blah. And it's not the right time. And so this week, I remembered that many years ago, you sent me to the Mission of St. Clair, which is an online resource beyond, beautiful. It's just, in fact, I didn't even realize until I went back to it this week that I found my New Zealand, prayer book there, that there's so much there, and that's where I'm really the most content is at night. And of course, part of this, and I've said this so many times to all of you, that finding the prayer that you now have sung is absolutely my favorite. And I went looking for it because I have that prayer book here, but I was looking online through the Mission of St. Clair, and finding and just waiting to get to the part. Where is it? Where is it? I know it's coming and there it is. And it's as beautiful to read it as to hear. And now, of course, I can't read it without hearing you singing in my head, because I so shortly after you arrived, discovered what an incredible were. And golly day, you just had recently released this CD, and I said, "Oh, cool!" And I'm listening to it, and all of a sudden you're singing that prayer, and I've got goosebumps telling you now, and it's just been such an incredible connection. You can also find her. This is a unpaid political announcement that you have discovered. She's on Amazon Prime. However, after listening to, I kept thinking, I'm not sure all these songs are from one album. And then Bob was even passing through. He said, "Who is that?" I said, "It's Ginny." He said, "I thought so." But finding that, he said, "Well, that isn't Ginny." And so I'm looking down and going, "You're right. It's not," because they've matched their songs with others. But it's just there's so much joy in that. And that album in itself, too, was a beautiful story of your relationship with Barbie and your love. And, there was a lot to it. But even that was there. And it was such a awesome way to get to know you, but go, "Oh my God, you're already my hero." Because I had that prayer when I was in this one discernment group that Kit knows about, that where we had to do a service. And so I'm looking for and I found that one, and
yeah. Well, Donna, thank you for sharing all of that. Music and is an important part of my own prayer life, and I should probably add that to my rule of life too, is to get back into praying through music. It's something to think about.
Right.
Friends, we're approaching the end of the hour, and I have one more component to the rule of life that I'll go over next week. And like I said, it's probably the hardest one. It has the most impact on my role as a rector at St. Anne. But before we wind down, I'm just wondering if there's anything that needs to be said that hasn't been said, or that you're curious about, or that you just want to say out loud before we wrap up. Okay, they have a lot to say.
Ginny, yeah, it's 8 o'clock. It's feeding time. Sorry. And Max just walked in, so they're expecting her to feed him.
Okay. Someone was getting ready to say something. Wiley.
Yeah, Ginny, I'm just appreciating you sharing all this and really taking your time with it. Like, I think there's just a lot of wisdom in stretching this out over 3 different days, weeks, and it really so just like magnifies like you found you continue to find you're seeking like your pastoral like way, like, and this is so you, and like it's just a really just really feeling like sort of you're pastoring to all of us and doing this, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, Wiley, thank you for saying that. I hungered for a way to communicate with you all something that was dear and precious to me, but I also wanted to make sure that I was taking the time to hear you in response, because it's a lot, and it's a lot to share too. I mean, I'm gonna walk out of here and go make a mocktail and have some dinner and kind of exhale a little bit. I was getting ready to say something and now it's gone right out of my brain. Right out of my brain. Anyway.
That I know well.
That you know well. Isn't that something? Well, friends, thank you for your time and attention this evening. Next week, what we'll hear is the last one, which is really work-life balance and all of the components and why they are set up the way that they are. Of course, it'll be recorded and posted on our YouTube page underneath the St. Anne's Formation tab. So we have playlists, and that's the playlist that'll be listed underneath. But thank you again for your time and energy and your witness and your presence. I just am overwhelmed with how the joy and the love that I feel from you all. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Yes.
Mary, will you dismiss us this evening?
Well, hallelujah. Let us go forth rejoicing in the power of the Spirit that leads us all along.
Thanks
be
be to
to
God.
God.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.